I think that's super interesting. How is it self-evident that it's just like observable?
No, like questioning what is matter and energy. It's so there appears to be. It appears that we are observers in a permanent universe that continues to exist even when we cease to observe it. And matter and energy are, I mean, it's 0 or 1. It's this space is either inhabited by matter or it's not inhabited by matter, and that matter is either moving or not moving, and you can measure it in X, Y, Z, in physical dimensions and at rates. And you say, and matter can be structured together in very intricate organizations, and from that we get, broader constructions that have their own properties on a macroscopic level, and blah, 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 blah. But to question what is matter and energy, I don't think that exploring that, what do you hope to gain from exploring that further?
Well, some kind of that's a good question. Some kind of footing for its existence, because right now all we have is like, well, it's just this thing that's observable. We're still fixing it in our own observation.
Well, again, like, it's observable. Well,
the point is it has to be fixed.
It's observable and its effects are observable. Like dark matter we can't directly observe, but we can see that it's pushing on other stuff in such a way. So we recognize that it exists, and its distance from our ability to directly observe doesn't matter because it has a quantifiable effect on other things that we can observe. So it's still part of the natural universe. We don't demand. It's enough to see its ripple. Like if there's some invisible thing moving through the grass and we see the grass parting as it goes, like, even though we don't see the thing, we see the grass moving, we have confirmation that something is doing it, whether it's the wind or whatever, but there's something. So that's like enough. All we're saying is that if we assume the permanence of the universe, and we assume that it operates based on, these natural laws that are never not true, that never fail to be true, then it's just quantifying the elements of that of those equations. It's just saying these are the things that actually are operating in these equations.
Yeah, I only press it because it. Still, even if you see only the effects in the grass, it's still your metaphysics is still centered. Metaphysics is the study of being, is still centered in your own perception, which is a problem because you can't be your own. You can't underwrite your own perception. You can't say like, well, I perceive this and it's true because I perceive that it's true. That's question begging. So,
well, but it's different. Like you can be wrong, like you can see something move in the darkness and perceive that it's a monster and then go and check and see that it was just a coat, right? So you can correct your own perception. It's like the consistency of your perception is what qualifies it.
And what is the rubric, the thing that decides like, okay, I was mistaken here, but now I'm right? Is it some outside exterior thing? No, it's your own perception. You're just perceiving.
It's experiment. It's empiricism. It's when I make predictions based on this processing of the information, based on this analysis of the information. When I make projections on that, how often do those predictions come true? Versus this one, how often do those predictions come true? Empiricism is the root of it, and empiricism is trying to separate one's own flawed perception from analysis of reality. It's trying to say analysis of the natural world. I'm satisfied with that.
Yeah, that only avoids my problem and doesn't get free of it. I would say that empiricism as a system of knowledge is on the same level as just like a first glance look where you perceive everything wrong. Empiricism is just looking at something with a lot more detail and study and like poking it in different ways so that it kind of manifests itself, and then you kind of get a full picture. But still, the thing that underwrites your confidence that like you have mapped reality correctly is just the fact that you perceive it well. Correct?
No, it's the fact that your predictions are accurate.
Right. Okay.
Your
So
predictions keep coming true, and
that's exactly what I'm saying. So like, yeah.
So you go from 50% of the time you call it correctly to 70% to 80% to 90 to 95 to 99 to 99.9 to 99.99. You're constantly getting closer and closer and closer and more accurate. That to say that that's the equivalent of like just a first glance and then we're still always wrong. We're not still always wrong. We're not still always wrong. Our ability to be less wrong is actually way, way, way better with this process.
Yeah, I know.
I wouldn't combine them.
I'm not saying that we're getting wrong, but what I'm trying to focus on is what is the authority that tells you that you're getting closer to being right?
Again, it's just empiricism.
Don't hide behind words like that.
Like that when I make predictions based on this analysis, those predictions come true more than...
And who's determining what's a true prediction? And if whether or not some phenomenon
When I
comes
say
up.
that it's going to rain and it ends up raining, I mean, I don't need an authority to do anything with that.
So who is the authority?
I don't know what you mean. There is no authority there.
If there is no authority, then you yourself, your own perception, is the one that's underwriting the experience.
I predict that it's going to rain, and then when it does, I see that it rains, and I say, okay, so this prediction, this is one in the check. This is one check in the column. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
Right.
What else could we do? I mean, that's all we're doing is...
I'm not making an argument that it's impractical. I totally agree. Empiricism is the best way to do science and the best way to map the world. When we're talking about a philosophy of being, it's very instructive to ask these questions like, well, why do I? Let's play some philosophy here and not just like be comfortable like, oh well, like what else are we gonna do? Let's just get along with it. Like I think it's important and instructive to realize that that our answers to these things are not as obvious as they first seem. And it seems to me that you are your own authority. You're the only authority, and there's these contradictory elements that you kind of bring up. One, you're capable of being mistaken, and two, you're capable of correcting your own mistakes. Sorry, let me clarify. Your perception of reality is capable of making mistakes.
I can hallucinate. I can dream.
Yes.
I can see a coat in the dark and think that it's a monster.
Yes, exactly.
Those perceptions can be inaccurate.
And then secondly, you can remedy your own perceptions according to your own perception. You can see a phantom in the dark in the closet, and then go in the closet and then verify that okay, I was just mistaken. That first perception was mistaken. Now I can see that I was wrong, and I have confidence in that.
Like I can hear some kind of wail and think that it's a baby, and then turn a corner and see that it's actually a car or something. And with more information, the explanation for that perception changes. I'll say like the perception doesn't actually change. Like what I perceive is something in the darkness, you know. But my brain
Judgment
receives those signals and interprets them, and it interprets the sum of the data and organizes it and says, okay, outcome, monster. And I can go and gather more information, and as I zoom out and as I gather more information, I can get data that contradicts that interpretation and say, okay, so that interpretation must be inaccurate, and then I have the next most likely interpretation. So in terms of the monster example, it's my interpretation of the data that I'm gathering, that I'm perceiving, that's changing. And that can change as I gather more data, because I can get data that contradicts my initial analysis. That doesn't change like hallucination. Like hallucination still does happen.
Gotcha.
And your brain sees things that aren't there.
Okay.
But hallucinations aren't persistent for me.
Right.
Or at least they're so persistent that I can't tell that they're so.
Yeah, we don't need hallucinations. So all right, you kind of clarified exactly the human process of like, perceiving the world.
It's
and
interpreting
you made a good
data.
point. Yeah, it's judging, interpretation of data. And again, I'll just with those new terms, I'll just I guess explain the same scenario.